Welcome back to episode 3 of the song series where we look at shops of normal guys. Today we're going to visit my good friend Mike Fisher. I met Mike in a SFL tap class in the Army as we're both retiring this year. And we're going to look at his shop today. It's awesome. He's got a really great story about how he picked up some tools in Korea, so stay tuned. This is Mike Fisher. Thanks for having us into your shop today.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
It's
Thanks for coming.
Always awesome to see how people set up their shops and their spaces. Before we get started though, people want to know who you are and how you got started. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, your career, and your woodworking. We'd love to hear it.
So, when me and my wife first got married, we went probably a year living out of cardboard boxes. And she comes to me one day, she says, my grandfather was a wood shop teacher, my father's a woodworker. When my grandfather died, he left all this walnut. You know, why don't we take a community college class and build a dresser?
That's awesome.
Well, 23 years later, I now have a 3-car shop that is almost entirely dedicated to woodworking.
That's awesome.
But it's been a process. You know, we started out working at the community college, taking woodshop classes, building stuff at night. You know, bought our first set of plans off of a New Yankee workshop, and then bit by bit, you know, joined the Army, deployed, had a little bit extra cash, bought some tools, deployed again, came back, bought some more tools.
So you got your DeWalt sliding miter saw here. It looks like a pretty fancy cart that it's sitting on, and you said this is one of the first things you got?
I think this was the very first tool that I bought. You know, I was deployed with the Army, had a little extra cash, and when I got back, I got this.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there was a woodworking magazine, had a plan for this cart, which is actually, I mean, I've had the saw now for going on 22 years. And this cart I've probably had for 15.
That's awesome. And you got your little flip stop here by Craig, and it collapses up nice in your shop, and you can move it around. It's on wheels, and it looks like it has some dust collection going on.
It does. It's got a little vacuum in there that turns on when you turn this on.
Oh, nice.
But I've got it set up like this because, you know, here's where I'm doing my build, you know, kind of fitting components and whatnot, and so having the router table, my sanders, and being able to creep up on the you know, the right fit with this.
Awesome.
A little easier than walking around to the table saw.
All right, so you've got a nice saw stop here. How do you like it? When did you get it? Tell me a little about it.
Funny story. So I mentioned that my father-in-law, that he's a woodworker, has been his whole life. Coming back from a deployment, like usual, and my wife calls me in tears. You know, all I'm getting over the phone is my father and accident.
Oh.
Well, he was in his shop and doing a cut clear walnut, you know, just trimming off about a 1/4 inch, but didn't have a ribbing knife on his saw, and the back end of it caught and brought him right back over the blade. He is now the president of the Ronnie James Dio fan club. Okay. And that was the time when we had 3 little kids in the house, and my wife said, you know what, I think it's time we upgrade from this, you know, this contractor saw that was just dangerous as could be, and got this.
Awesome.
And it has been wonderful. The customer service from them as a, because it's over 10 years old now, and I recently replaced a couple of gears, the lower, the elevation mechanism, and you know, talking to tech support guys knew exactly what I was talking about. It was like $30 for new parts.
They're awesome.
Yeah, they were great.
Tell me about this Grizzly helical head joiner. This thing's awesome.
So I bought this when I got back from my first trip to Iraq in 04, and you know, it was around, I think, $900 at the time.
Wow.
And this is probably the first thing I bought where I really went big. It was the first 220 tool that I bought. Had to make an extension cord that I could plug into the laundry room to power it.
Nice.
Had, our little one-car garage in Fort Polk, Louisiana. Had to keep a dehumidifier going in the shop because it was so humid out there, and it's my first big piece of cast iron that ever went to rust.
Yeah, well, it looks like you managed to keep it in pretty nice shape. It's, since you said OIF1, that'd have been 2003 timeframe?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
So in a lot of normal guys' shops I've seen, they don't have some of this big equipment that you have. I see 3 pretty robust looking Powermatic tools here. You've got a disc sander. I don't even know how big that bandsaw is.
I think it's 20 inches.
And there's off the shop, we'll show it to you in a second, there's a pretty huge shaper over there. Tell me how this isn't normal. How'd you get these? What?
So, funny story. I'm in Korea, and while I was there, the Army was closing down the base at Yongsan. And for those of you who don't know, most Army bases have a wood shop. And so they auctioned off all of the equipment.
But in Korea, though, like, you can't just pack this up with your duffel bag and bring it home, can you?
Right. So, being a good husband, the first thing I did was call my wife. I'm like, baby, are we down for this? And she said, yeah, we'll find a way to ship that stuff back. There are international shipping companies. They do business all over the world. I'm sure we can solve this problem.
Yeah.
So I put a bid in. It was a silent auction. I put a bid in on 5 items. This 20-inch disc sander, 20-inch bandsaw, and a 5-horsepower shaper, and then also a 22-inch planer helical head. Thing was a monster. $150 per item.
And you won it?
I won all 4.
Oh my, that's like the dream. Everybody watching, that will never happen to any of you, I'm sorry. But still, having access to this machinery in a normal guy's shop is pretty incredible. It's sort of the dream. I don't know any woodworkers that don't get sort of a unofficial degree in some sort of electrical work, because we all have to figure out how to wire things and besides your dryer, your range in your house, just not used to using 220 for things. But if you got a shop, it's not hard to do, especially if you can turn the breakers off and be safe about it if you need to get power to where you need it. So this is really neat.
Yeah,
that is an incredible story.
When I set this up, just for the safety nuts out there, I wired it after doing months of research, and then I had an electrician come and inspect all of my work before I flipped that breaker the first time to turn it on.
That's pretty smart.
So the main service panel of the house is on the outside wall here.
Right.
So I've got a 60 amp breaker that feeds this, which is the phase converter, and then that is my circuit breaker box for 3-phase.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good tip. Don't be afraid to do electrical work by yourself. Do the research, figure out how to do it. Have somebody that knows what they're doing look at it afterwards, but you can save yourself a ton of time and money if you're willing to learn something new and do it yourself, like Mike did. That's a pretty big tip. Electricians are pretty pricey. All right, Mike, tell me a story on this one. It's still got tags on it, and it looks like it's in perfect condition. I'm guessing it's pretty new.
It is. Little bit of backstory for anybody watching this. After Mike and I met, he came here to the shop and helped me reorganize some things. And one of the things that we talked about was that behemoth Powermatic 22-inch planer. The thing was 1,300 pounds.
It's a monster.
I had to rent an engine hoist to get it off the pallet and onto its mobile base. And even on a heavy-duty Bora mobile base, it was just so unwieldy.
Yeah.
The motor, technically I could supply it with what I had, but I didn't use it because, well, it was a hassle. It constantly tripped the breaker or its own magnetic switch. And so I ended up using my little lunchbox planer.
Right.
And so you convinced me to stop seeing this as a piece of equipment, but see it for what it's worth and what I could do with that.
Right.
And so cut off the emotional attachment and, posted it, and it was sold in a week. I sold it for $4,000, and I bought this brand new Grizzly 15-inch. That takes up a lot less space. It's a
Yeah.
lot more user-friendly. I can plug it right into regular single-phase 220.
Yeah, that's huge. And it's got a helical head just like your joiner does too now.
It does.
All right, this is where all the magic happens. You got an awesome hand tool collection, and this is an awesome bench. What's your current project? What are you making here? I see a bunch of wood laid out and some dovetails being cut here.
So the other day I dimensioned my lumber so I can make some drawers for down here. This is just storage for right now, but my intent is to have all my marking stuff here, router bits, because right now everything's just kind of thrown in my old Craftsman workbench.
Yeah.
But so that's what I'm working on. And in the process of dimensioning that wood, I got my fronts and my backs fit perfectly.
Yeah.
And then when I was cutting my sides, I cut them a little bit too narrow.
Right.
But finding a silver lining in that cloud, I'm just using this opportunity to practice my chops, literally, with doing some hand cut work.
Yeah.
And my first one was pretty nasty.
Yeah.
So I grabbed my chisels and grabbed my stones and went back inside and spent the afternoon getting everything sharp, so I'm not crushing fibers, because this poplar did not do well with dull chisels.
Yeah. You think these are bad, or you had a rough go at that one corner, but the first set of dovetails I cut them completely backwards on accident, and was confused the entire time I was cutting them. And that's, of course, how you end up with completely backward dovetails.
Yeah, it turns out making them yourself is a whole lot harder than watching a YouTube video.
Yeah. Amen to that. So your bench, you build the bench?
I did. My wife convinced me to make my first bench out of dimensional lumber, make sure that I liked the height, liked
Right.
the size of it, before we committed, $2,000 in hard maple.
Yeah.
And 10, 12 years later, I've still got the same bench.
Yeah.
Because
So it works.
I just can't bring myself to put that much money into something I'm just going to beat the crap out of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe, one day. But for now, this is an awesome bench. I really love your vise systems, and you get holdfasts, and it's just a nice, stylish, looks like very functional bench. Hand tool or power tool, what tool, when you get a chance to use it, you can't wait? It's always fun to use.
I love the planes.
Yeah.
I love the satisfaction that comes from making that thin, curly shaving.
Yeah.
But that is truly that is an emotional thing, and I enjoy it. The most useful thing in the shop, and aside from the table saw, which would
Right.
be an easy answer, that disc sander
Really?
for making chairs, making anything that's sculpted.
Mm-hmm.
That thing, you can be so creative with it.
I just want to tell everybody watching real quick, while we were sitting here looking at all these awesome tools, we got a coping saw here, apparently made in India. And out of all the things in the shop that spin fast and you would need goggles or safety glasses for, this one tool says always wear ANSI approved safety goggles when working with tools and equipment, as this is the most dangerous thing in the shop. Watch out for this guy. All right, last question, or last set. How do you want to grow this year, either personally in the trade or professionally as your next business?
As I mentioned earlier, the big hole in my swing is, the production and how to turn this into a profitable business.
Yeah.
I've sold a few things, made a few things for people over the last little bit, but turning this into something where I'm pricing my work and my time correctly.
Yeah.
Is something that I want to get a better feel for, and working with Jason Parker's been very helpful for that. We've had a lot of conversations about it, and I've seen some great videos where people have discussed that, woodworking as a business versus hobby. But that's really where I want to grow this next year.
That's awesome, and really, in community is where guys getting started can find out information like that. When I'm talking to you, and like, oh, I got this project, the client accepted the bid at this, and kind of compare notes and get some real local feedback on what our market here in Central Texas looks like for someone that wants to make custom woodworking stuff. So, really And a tip for me again would be reach out, form community. It's such a resource. Where can we find you at for, you know, viewing pleasure or Instagram? Where are you located at?
So I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Fisher Custom Woodworks.
Okay.
Not any derivation of that because there are a few. So I am Fisher Custom Woodworks.
Awesome. And we'll put links below for you to check out.
Logo
There you go.
from designed by our friends over at Vertical Speed.
Nice. Awesome.